Uh, Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to welcome you for this very interesting topic on Indian Railways towards Atmanirbhar Bharat, which is self-reliant India, building overall manufacturing capabilities. Today, I have very special guests coming in from industry and the government who have huge experience with working with Indian Railways. Uh, if I just give you some starting comments, Indian Railways has progressed significantly on the path of Atmanirbhar Bharat with a number of policy reforms which has been taken. Indian Railways is encouraging manufacturing and promotes production of goods and services in India with increase of local content through partnerships, cooperation with local companies, establishing production units in India and joint ventures with Indian suppliers. Proactive reciprocity principle in Make in India policy has already been enabled, and uh, promotion of Make in India manufactured goods has already been in place. In 2020, we had reduced the import dependence from 5.6% in 2013-14 to about 1.6% in 2020. We have some amazing achievements like the train collision avoidance system, which has been indigenously developed. We are now exporting to various markets in Asia and around as well. Uh, with this in mind, let me ask my panelists to give opening comments. Over to you, Mr. Dhingra, if you can provide your opening comments on Atmanirbhar Bharat and what we are doing in Indian Railways, and then we move to Mr. Mani.
Thank you, Rahul. And you're right. From Atmanirbhar Bharat point of view, there has been a lot of work which has been done. And especially if I talk about the rolling stock, the major impetus came where sometime about 15 years back, when Indian government decided for all the metros, the manufacture of cars has to be done in India. And subsequently, they have given the references that 30%, 40%, 50% manufacturing has to be done. That's how the private player have come up and set up the factories in India. It has also been seen that the manufacturing units of railways also have grown over the last 5, 6 years. I would say they have almost doubled the capacity in the last 7, 8 years. So this also shows that the demand of the Indian Railways as the metro creates such an opportunity for the manufacturers to be here in India, whether the final build-up of vehicle or the component supplier. You also mentioned about TCAS. TCAS is something which has been in development for the last about 8, 10 years. Government initially decided to follow the European standard too. They came out with a tender, but then they decided not to go for it. The TCAS option available in India is almost 50% price of ETCS level 2. So this development is also a good development, but this also encourages many more players to enter into this field in TCAS, because today we have a limited player and government is thinking of introducing TCAS in over 50,000 kilometers of network in the next 10, 15 years. So overall sides from the Atmanirbhar point of view, I would say that the encouragement which has been given by the government, including Ministry of Railways and Ministry of Urban and Housing Development, shows encouraging responses from the industry. So these are my initial comments.
Thank you. Mr. Mani, your initial comments, please.
Thank you. So, first of all, Atmanirbhar has become a term which is largely misused. What exactly it conveys, except that you have to add 50% value in the country, I'm not able to still understand. So, I will go with my understanding. One is, of course, an attempt to make India as a country a factory of the world, which China has done and even India has done in certain sectors. For example, the pharma sector, you can safely call India the factory of the world. So that kind of manufacturing under license, under TOT, by establishing JVs or any other contractual method is certainly welcome, because it adds to the manufacturing sector of your economy. It adds to employment. It adds to other advantages of the economy in terms of supply chain and so on. So that's one part. And of course, I agree with you that significant work has been done in that direction. And even on Indian Railways, apart from the metros, which Mr. Dhingra talked about, you also have this example of two PPP factories where Investment has been done by two companies to manufacture locomotives in India, so it generates employment. It is not a true investment, foreign direct investment, in the sense that the investment is made and it is sold back to railways or leased back to railways. So, in effect, the investment has been made by railways itself, but that is the way the PPP animal acts. That's one. The other part of Atmanirbharta, which is closer to my heart and I would think is the true measure of Atmanirbhar, is what Japan and China have done. Over the last, let's say Japan over the last 60, 70 years, China over the last 20 years or so, is by leveraging their volumes, they invite people to come and do the work in their country and they learn in the process. And it can only be done by when you leverage a volume. If you buy small quantities, nobody is going to give you know-how and know-why. And second, over the years, through various transfer of technologies that you have taken, what have you learnt in those 60, 70 years? Using that to develop your own product, to become a creator of a product, and then try to market it in your own country and perhaps abroad. It is the second part which is sadly very lacking in the country. So this is my opening remark, and I'd like to speak more on it when you ask me a question.
So thank you. I think those are very, very interesting comments, and I think innovation and building new products is critical to grab market share, and I'm completely with you on that. Uh, Based on your experience, Mr. Mani, how the Indian coach factories like the ICF, MCF, uh, are they giving impetus to Bharat and Make in India? Can you cover some points on how new Indian innovators can actually come and participate in development of such products with ICF, MCF, or factories like that?
All right, so let's stick to the coach manufacturing factories. So what have we got? We had a technology transfer in 50s from Switzerland, so we made ICF coaches. Then in late 90s, early 2000s, we got this LHB coach technology. These were the two technologies which we got in these 70 years, and we were doing all our work around these technologies. थोड़ा आगे थोड़ा पीछे, and by changing this and that and so on, which is all right, but the stress has always been on large numbers and not so much into on innovation and developing new products, improving the aesthetics or technology of the product. That much stress has not been there, and perhaps rightly so. We needed number of coaches. I'll not go into that question, but what actually happened was what I always call more of the same. I also keep saying that if you look at an Indian Railways train of 1950s and look at a train of 2022, the recall of the train is same. The color has changed from Gulf red to blue. You have more AC coaches and so on, but the recall of an Indian train remains same. So we are a large country and we can afford multiplicity of products. I mean, there's hardly any other country other than China which makes 7,000, 8,000 coaches a year. There is no need to go on making the same product after year. There is a large arena available with 3 factories to do a lot of innovations and bringing newer products which add not only more value, but also add visibility. And from that only can come the impetus toward exports, which we keep talking about. So largely, if you ask me this question, drawing upon the technology we have learned over 60, 70 years, I think we have not been able to exploit it well to become any kind of a creator of technology. So people always ask me about Train 18. All right, so Train 18 was, because of the wonderful team there, there was no novelty in the concept at all. It is something which is being used in the world for 25 years. It was just assimilation of what we have learned with a commitment to make a product which would look different and bring in new value. So I would think more and more such experiments have to be done by the coach factories. And only when they do it can we then leverage this for exporting our products outside India. And this stress on numbers has to reduce. You see, we will discuss about private and public manufacturing later, perhaps. But since it is it is being manufactured in PUs, production units of railways, uh, unless you reduce some stress on numbers, the quality would not improve. But the stress is always on numbers, and that's why the quality of these factories is never up to the mark. Everything has been tried out. It doesn't really bring it up to that quality level to which it must work. So time has to be there to rethink on reducing, downsizing the level of operation and giving more and more premium on quality.
Thanks, Mr. Mani. I think probably there are some elements which I may myself disagree, because the availability of investments in the country was always minimal. We were a small economy. I think now is the time when we have actually grown. And next 10 years to 10 to 20 years, I think the China reference is the also availability of money which was relevant, and how you could develop the products. I believe we are now in that sweet spot to invest more and to actually improve the quality of services in next few years. Moving on, Mr. Dhingra, I think you've seen how the entire manufacturing ecosystem has evolved. There have been lacunas, but there have been some positive parts as well. I think when you were in Bombardier, you were exporting from India. How do you when you see this entire picture of manufacturing, can you give some insights on how this has really come up, and where do you think we can take this, with National Rail Plan 2030 coming in?
See, I think two things I would like to say here. One is that if I take you back to 2002, because up till 2002, all rail coach manufacturing was done by Indian Railways themselves, and there was no private player. In 2002, when Metro decided to come into this field of rolling stock, that is the time they started insisting that manufacturing has to be done in India. And the first contract, which was taken by the Korean company, which was Hyundai Rotem, they partnered with BML, and BML created that facility to manufacture the first private train in India, first private metro, with the know-how, the manufacturing know-how, which has come from Hyundai Rotem. And subsequently, Bombardier got the contract. In 2007, Bombardier decided to set up the factory. And if you see the historical perspective, the last 20 years, almost 4,000 coaches of similar types have been made by Bombardier and Alstom and BML. So, and in the Indian Railways, no private player for the coach manufacturing has still entered, because there was no opportunity which was given by Indian Railways, except for wagons. Wagons manufacturing was done by the third party, where the wagon players were there. But for the other rolling stock, it was purely done by the 3-4 companies, which created the infrastructure and set up, created a base in India. And what is the advantage of it is that today, because if I go back again to 2006, 2007, almost 50% of material which was imported. Today, we have come to a stage that also almost 80% is manufactured in India. There is a possibility that some of the components still continue to be imported, because those are not manufactured in India, like electronic parts, IGBTs and all. But still, there is 60% plus manufacturing which is done in India by Indian rupees, by Indian manufacturer. So this shows a trend which has taken place over the last 20 years, especially to keep the requirement of metros in mind. Now, one interesting development which has taken place in the last 1 or 2 years is that Indian Railways are also now thinking to allow the private sector to come in the manufacturing of train. They tried in 1 or 2 ways, like privatization of train operation, they tried, it somehow failed. Then they went in the locomotives also, which worked. As Mr. Mani said, 2 locomotive plant has come, investment came as a setting up of manufacturing, but now the technology also has come to India, and those locomotives are made in India. Now, the new demand which is coming, which is lined with your national plan, is additional requirement of coaches, especially the EMU to EMU type of coaches, distributed power coaches, where Indian Railways is thinking to come out with a requirement of somewhere around 400 trains, which is about 6,400 coaches to be supplied by private player. Still, the debate is going on whether it will be supplied by private player or it will be manufactured by private player in the Indian Railway manufacturing units. But still, the new technology is coming. So there, I agree with what Mr. Mani has just now said. The trend which was seen 50 years back, especially on the look of the train, has not changed. But the new technology that will come, especially in the 400 trains which is coming, this will come out with a better kind of a rolling stock in the Indian market. This was demonstrated as a prototype by ICF by manufacturing train 18, and now the advanced version of train 18 will come because government is thinking of increasing the speed. And once you are thinking of increasing the speed and giving a better service to the commuters, so definitely a better version of technology project which will come in India through this kind of requirement. So if I see from private sector point of view, few opportunities which are highlighted during this year, which tenders are expected to come. One is the 400 trains, which is about 6,400 coaches. Second is 1,200 locomotives, for which announcement has already been done that these locomotives have to be manufactured in Dahod, which is 1,200 numbers, 9,000 HP locomotives. Again, a new technology will come in India. Then there is additional demand of 1,000 locomotives, 800 to 1,000 locomotives of 12,000 HP that is required. So there again, the private sector will get into it, irrespective of the fact whether the private sector will supply by creating a manufacturing base in private sector or use the coach manufacturing units of railways, which is yet to be decided. But the overall perspective, I said the private player participation by getting the technology into India, by getting the new quality product in India, this has come over the last few years, which is a positive sign towards the Atmanirbhar Bharat.
I think those are very, very interesting points, Mr. Dhingra. With all of this happening, how do you think, and there is a lot of disruption happening on the global supply chains as we are speaking. We've seen a lot of movement already on the manufacturing front happening from globe to India. How do you think within the railway manufacturing, the large companies like Alstom, Bombardier, and the likes can help Indian SMEs to learn, get that know-how, develop new products? How do you think that is possible in the Indian ecosystem?
It's very much possible if you see the development which has taken place in two of the major suppliers, which is Bombardier and Alstom. Today, though Bombardier is a part of Alstom, the export of coaches have taken place from India to Australia, that is Sydney and Brisbane. Export of coaches have taken place to Montreal, which is in Canada. And also, I am hearing that the export of coaches is also possible to go to Bucharest. And majority of these players have the components supplied by MSMEs, except certain items, certain critical items, where since the trains have to be maintained at the place where they are used, they have gone with the international suppliers. Like for brake system and other things where we have to maintain the system, the trains in the Australia or in Canada, obviously go with the players who have got established service setup in these countries. But from the MSME point of view, I think by developing this kind of export products, which is a high quality product, I don't say that metro coaches which are supplied to India they are not high quality. Similar quality products are also being exported to Australia and Canada, and MSMEs have supported the likes of Bombardier and Alstom to do this kind of manufacturing in India. So, for the point of sake of repeating, I'm saying is majority of the vendors who are supplying to the international players, they have created their manufacturing base in India, where there is a brake, couplers, you have the doors, all these players now are in India. So which shows that people are ready to come to India to support this kind of a private sector participation.
Thank you. I think that's a very interesting points. Mr. Mani, I think India aspires to be a very important supplier. We've done some work, but nothing compared to what is our potential. What do you think is required to be done? At the government level, at the private sector level, what do you think we need to do so that we can grab a much larger share of the global rail market?
Yeah, okay. So we will, in spirit, talk of Indian manufacturing as such, and it applies to rail sector also. So Uh, how do you, I keep saying these things because unless you act now, you will remain what you are. How do you compare with Japan or China? How do you compare with China what it has done in 20 years? It has not done this by piggybacking all their tenure on certain multinationals. You piggyback, extract, and then do your own. So we are piggybacking, and we have been, like Mr. Dhingra has given these examples of export of coaches, manufactured in India with certain components also, sub-assemblies made in India. But it will never enable you to earn the credibility of designing and exporting a metro coach ever. So what has been done is fine, but what is our movement towards the second? Practically nothing. That's the problem. And that's, as I keep saying, that's true Atmanirbhar. You don't have to go far. You have to only look at China, which may hurt our pride, but that's the, unless you learn, you won't do it, is to really invest in innovation. And in what is an innovation? An idea which is tested in the market and completes the cycle of innovation is really an innovation. Proves its value. And in in converting that innovation into manufacture, you have this technology which can be, the knowledge, the skill, the machinery plant used in it, the processes, the methods, all that together is something which develops when you create something. And then you have to encourage it while it is developed and then nurture it. So all that is English. How will it be done? In nowadays, especially after these COVID bottom lines and so on, we can't expect private sector to do something on their own without government support. I would rather say that it is squarely in the hands of government to encourage all this, because government is a big spender. Now let's take a simple example. Mr. Dhingra just said 4,000 metro coaches in 20 years. Allied equipment and so on, I don't know exact figure, but close to 1 lakh crore would have been spent towards this. Okay, maybe a little less. We did not perhaps foresee it in 2022, 2002. If we had, then which country would spend this kind of money and still not be even the rudimentary designer of a train? Think of it from that perspective. So think of the next 15 years. If you have to reach somewhere in 15 years, you have to start now. You do what you're already doing. I'm not against it. I've become a factory of the world. Of course, it will add employment. But start that work now, towards which the only good example today we can give in Indian Railways is of TCAS, which you talked about. So that's a good. So TCAS, if you talk to anybody who's seen ETCS level 2, will point out to you 10 problems with TCAS. And we will get into that debate. Yes, of course, TCAS is a little inferior to ETCS level 2. I'm not getting into that technical debate. But it's a product entirely of Indian engineers. And it as a product, if it is proven not now, some idiot will come and say, start exporting. He'll kick you back saying, first try it out in your own country, then come and export. If we now go rapidly large scale, which the minister has already said, you can imagine a picture in 4 or 5 years from now. You will have such a robust system, which would be corrected as we go along. It will have a very good potential for exporting, because if I may say so, I think it's not half, but it is nearly 1/4 of the price of ETCS level 2. So 2 crore versus 40 to 150 lakhs per kilometer. So the minister has now taken the right step, but we have wasted 4 or 5 years in this. You must remember, which we cannot afford now. So that government, it is squarely in the hands of the government to encourage such technologies, created technologies, which will give you huge dividends in future. And failure should not deter you. Unless you fail, you will not have successes. So uh, that's what I would be my thought on that real Atmanirbhar. This is what I would call real Atmanirbhar, not merely manufacturing things on borrowed technology. Which, if you think of it, tell me, What is so great about in India? Go to a small country, set up a factory, you think they can't do it? Any country in the world except some very poor countries can do it. So are you, a country of 140 million, are feeling proud of that? Think about it. You think, is there any difference in making these coaches in India between India and Thailand? I doubt.
I think Mr. Dhingra has something to add.
Well, I have a slightly different view here. Mr. Mani has rightly said about the Atmanirbhar from the manufacturing point of view. But let us see from the engineering and design point of view. Now, today, two major players of the vehicle builders, which is G, now Webtech, and Alstom, which have a huge engineering base in India. So almost all the design activity for the Indian market as well the international market is today done in India. The trains which are supplied in Singapore, Bangkok, Australia, Canada are designed in India. So it is not Atmanirbhar from manufacturing perspective, it is Atmanirbhar also from a design perspective. So we have created that kind of engineering base here in India that all the vehicle design can be done in India, which is a very good sign, I would say, to go forward. Comparing that with China, I don't want to compare everything with China because China, the volume in China and volume in India is totally different. When China talk about the high speed 20 years back, they were nowhere. Today they are at 40,000 kilometers. And we are in India still struggling. So I do not want to compare with China, but let us compare with other countries today. Like we say Atmanirbhar make in India, each country, each of the major developed country also is talking about the same thing. Australia do not allow now import of trains into Australia. USA do not allow any import of trains into India, into Australia. Europe doesn't allow any import of trains into Europe. So obviously what you can do, either you can supply the components from India to the European market or the US market, which is being done, or you use the design or engineering base of all the products which are being manufactured in other places. From that perspective, I said Atmanirbhar is moving towards the way which I thought 15 years back not going to happen, but has happened. So I will give full credit to private players who have designed, who have created a design base in India. Not only these two players, there are other manufacturing, other engineering companies in India like Tech Mahindra, L&T Infotech. You have Sand, you have three, four more companies who have created that kind of a engineering base in India to create that kind of support to the rolling stock company. But the example of TCAS is very good. Example of TCAS, what has happened, it should have happened 5 years back. I don't know what was the reason behind delaying the introduction of TCAS in the Indian market, knowing fully well the ETS level 2 prices will not be able to reach the kind of expectation which Indian market is expecting. So there is a delay. Let the delay be over. But let us start now the way Mr. Mani has said that with the 2,000 kilometers today being planned for this year, an additional about 8,000 kilometers the next 3-4 years, but you require more players. Today in TCAS, we have hardly 3 players in India. And 10,000 kilometers of TCAS, if you want to introduce in the next 4-5 years, you require additional 4-5 players to be there in this field. So this is my additional point, which I thought I will just supplement on what Mr. Mani has said.
Sure, please.
Yeah.
Yes, Mr. Mani.
Yeah. So, thank you, Mr. Dhingra. So again, I differ with him. And why? So his thrust seems to be that in Atmanirbharta we have not been able to do creative work in manufacturing, but we have done in design. I think we have done the reverse, and I'll tell you why. So manufacturing, of course, if you are able to export to Australia and Canada, you cannot find so much fault with manufacturing. It has to be, they won't accept poor quality, number one. So I'm sure the manufacturing has done rather well towards Atmanirbharta. Mr. Dhingra said that these big companies, all of them have design centers here. I visited most of them. For example, the G Design Center came up in 90s, late 90s, the Jack Welch Center, and so on. And they are more like a design center. For example, I'll give the example of G because it will not ruffle any feather here. It was like a design center set up in Erie, brought to Bangalore. There also you have Indian engineers. Here you have more Indian engineers. But My experience with microprocessor when they were initially being fitted in Indian locomotives, I'm going back 25 years now. Even for sneezing, these fellows have to go and take approval from ERE. And this is true for all multinationals. Still, I was in service. If things have changed in 3 years, I don't know. Why? You might have set up design center, but I still feel very low-end design work is done here. The true blue, white, Angrez design work is not done in India. If it is done and it has changed, I'm happy. But drawing upon these experiences, then my dream would be that Mr. Dhingra and I will form a company and we'll use these engineers to make a true blue Indian product someday. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Mani. That's some criticism actually going that way. But I think just to I think we're coming at the close of this session. But market when we see as a whole, we also look at the volumes and the prospective growth which the can achieve, and I think that those are some of the reasons why we've continued to see investments, the foreign direct investments, the way it's coming into India. Design centers, we have more than 1,200 R&D centers. We are the second largest innovation system, ecosystem already, and the largest in Asia by far. We get 27% of all R&D centers in Asia are in India actually. So
there you have it. I have to disturb you. You may belt out these numbers, but what is the percentage of global Indian products? It's not even 1%. So 27% of innovation, but product zero. Product is from US, Europe, Japan, or somewhere else. Think of that. Which Indian product is being made by these 27% R&D people?
That's what I'm coming to next. That was my next comment. I think the point to interject or think about is that the global multinational companies have been able to create products which are created in India, marketed outside, as global products. As the time now come that the R&D centers, in fact, I wanted to add the next number as well. Only 26 Indian companies have R&D centers, compared to the, of that 1140. So the time has actually come in to use and develop this, this asset which we have into creating Indian products. And I think all of us have responsibility on pushing that, not only for railways, but for all other products as well. With that in mind, I think we are keen to see Atmanirbhar and self-reliant to be a very strong theme to develop India and make the new India. Thank you so much.
Wait for Mani, Dhingra and company to do what you wish us to do.
I think, Mr. Mani, we both are like-minded thoughts on the capability of Indian industry, engineering as well as manufacturing. So I like your idea. Let's promote that in the coming days.
Thank you. Great.
Just Rahul,
Thank you.
Sorry to butt in here. Maybe just a quick couple of line closing statement from Mr. Dhingra and Maniji. If you can have it. Just quick couple of lines as a closing remark. I will mute myself.
Sure.
Yeah, okay. So we have spoken. I don't think there's any specific need for a closing comment, but I will, at the fear of repetition, I would say that what is going on is good. Government has good schemes also in Atmanirbhar. For example, the productivity linked scheme has had good dividends, I've heard, in certain sectors. So we are doing well as far as making us a factory of the world is concerned, but we have to do more, and particularly government has to do more to encourage and nurture innovations and development of new products through R&D in India.
Mr. Dhingra, you can get
I just want to add one more point, especially on the manufacturing capacity in India today on the field of rolling stock. Today, sum total of the private player manufacturing is somewhere around 700 to 800 coaches, which they supply only to metros, not to railways. And in the locomotives front also, they have about 100 to 150, 200 locomotives per year. with the initial comment which I made, that talking about 400 trains, which is about 6,400 coaches and almost like 2,000 locomotives, this capacity has to be doubled, either in the private sector or in case they want to use the facilities of IR, which like they have announced that they want to use in Dahod and all, then that place also investment is required. So to meet this immediate requirement which government is thinking of, the coaches and the locomotives, and also on the wagons, the tender for 90,000 wagons are come, which is about 30,000 wagons per year. But the real capacity of the wagon industry is about 9,000 to 10,000. So capacity increase in this field of rolling stock, whether it is locomotive, wagon, coaches, is required in the coming days. So this is the final thought which I thought on the manufacturing side in India.
Sure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.